with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone. There were near fisticuffs in Parliament today when, for the third time, the minority prevented the government from laying the new regulations seeking to restrict the importation of selected products, including rice and sugar. If passed, the law will empower the trade minister to authorize the importation of these 22 products. Now, on two occasions, the minority scuttled plans to lay the regulation, which they say they are strongly opposed to because it gives the Minister for Trade unbridled power. Now, listen to the Majority Leader, Oseche Mensah-Bonsu, plead with the minority to allow the laying of the regulation.
Beginning this Monday up to the 22nd, would even be required to sit on a Saturday to have the regulations mature on the 22nd of December. I know colleagues have issues, but we have sat on it and resolved those matters. So I want to plead with colleagues to allow the Minister for Trade and Industry to present the paper on behalf of his ministry to us. Thank you.
But the minority will not listen to the appeal. They deployed a number of strategies, including raising the issue of quorum to block the laying of the regulation.
To raise quorum under Order 48 of our standing orders. Mr. Speaker, looking at the numbers in the chamber, we do not have quorum to transact business. Not to take a decision, to transact business. Now, given the nature of the instrument the minister wants to lay, Mr. Speaker, I want to crave your indulgence to determine the question I've raised on quorum so that we can be properly guided. And for the avoidance of that, Mr. Speaker, this is how Order 48 reads. It says, the presence of at least 1/3 of all the members of Parliament, besides the person presiding, shall be necessary to constitute a quorum of the House. Given the fact that there is serious disagreement over aspects of the LI that the minister wants to lay, and coupled with the fact that we don't even have a quorum, I believe it is appropriate to bring proceedings to a close to pave the way for further consultations before this matter can be dealt with the greatest of respect, Mr. Speaker. Order 48 is very, very clear. I thank you for the opportunity.
Well, that wasn't the only attempt to shoot this down. The Deputy Minority Whip, Ahmed Ibrahim, argued their side is opposed to the laying of the regulation.
If I heard the member who moved the quorum, Honorable Agaga, we have 28 here and 13 on the majority side. 28 members on the minority side and 30 members on the majority side. And we are going ahead to lay an instrument of such magnitude with this courage. In addition, Mr. Speaker, the Right Honorable himself, sensing the collective wisdom of the House, indicated that we should not lay the instrument until the two sides of the leadership or have consulted and briefed him. Mr. Speaker, have you received that briefing? Has the Speaker told you that the leadership have informed him that this is their position on it? Mr. Speaker, it will be a very great disservice if the Right Honorable Speaker comes on Monday to be told that the decision or indication that he gave in his absence, the Speaker, it was turned answer done by you. We are going to lay an instrument to control and restrict import, which will go against the WTO conventions, making a passionate appeal to the leadership, colleague leadership, and to your good self that we must not ambush the Speaker in this way. He has utmost trust in you and has given the seat in you. We must not treat him this way. I end my case, Mr. Speaker.
Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kweku Asante is with me in the studio. Kweku, Katie Hammond, who is the sector minister, was left furious at this point.
In fact, throughout Ahmed Ibrahim making his remarks, he was on his feet. And he used so many words that the speaker considered unprintable. He was ordered to retract them. He apologized. But he still could not fathom why the NDC were trying to scuttle his plans to lay this. And he said he was trained in the UK and he does not see anywhere in Ghanaian laws that allow the minority to reject his plan to lay this here.
I find it extremely appalling that a member of this House could threaten a competent and legally elected deputy speaker, a second deputy speaker of the House. I find it atrocious. It is in bad taste. Who is he appealing to? They have no say in whether Allah is laid in this House or not. No one, not even with respect to the Speaker. The Speaker has absolutely no right over whether a legislative instrument is laid in this House. That is the Constitution. All this threat, all this fact about if the Speaker has a right in you, has whatever in you. Mr. Speaker, the laying, you have no control over it. The Speaker has no control over it with respect. The Speaker, the Constitution says it. The minority says there's a problem. It is revolting for them to suggest that they are here to represent the good people of Ghana. You think we are here to represent the bad people of whatever country? What the hell are you talking about? Because I am a British trained barrister at law. I don't take that from you. I do know very well, Mr. Speaker, about the World Trade Organization rules, and we have taken that very much into account before we drafted this regulation. Mr. Speaker, constitutionally,
Honourable Minister,
today this, and we beseech you to allow us to raise
Honourable Minister,
and it is not within the ambit of those on this side, the Speaker, to prevent a constitutionally properly prepared document to be laid in this House. Umami fans.
Umami fans, was he really serious about this?
Yes, in fact, up until the time that he said Umami fans, the majority chief whip had come to stand behind him and was rubbing his back. You could see the fury in his face. In fact, at the end of proceedings, journalists wanted to talk to him. He was angry. He wouldn't speak. But the minority leadership were also not really happy with the comments that came from KTM. We saw Ama Kofi-Boa get up on his feet and wave the regulations printed to his face and say that there is no way you are going to get this paper laid in this House.
We can only produce about 46% of the rice we eat, we consume. We can only produce less than 30% of the tomatoes we eat. And so many of the lists we are talking about. If the minister is addressing an issue such as this, we must have an input. Right, Mr. Speaker, what is the capacity to address this in the next 6 months, for example? We don't have. So the honourable minister is so wrong to have argued that this House and the members who represent the people
Honourable member, honourable member, well noted.
But it's important we note, right, Mr. Speaker, please. It's important we state that we have serious concerns about this regulation. I'll read you one of them. This minister should be given the power to decide that tomorrow morning I don't feel good, your license is cancelled. We should give him that power. I read your document and we don't accept it.
Is it a question that you will not accept it?
What about the majority leader, though? I mean, he had some proposals, how to build consensus.
Yes, he started off with an appeal to the minority to let them lay this. When it was clear that the minority were not going to allow this go through, his agreement was that this morning, in fact, last night as well, he had met with the minority leadership. They had proposed certain amendments. So KT Hammond should go back, incorporate these amendments into the regulation, and then bring it back on Monday. They will attempt to lay it.
If we have to go back and amend the Parent Act to align with the treaty, the WTO and after, that's a different conversation. That's a different conversation. So, Mr. Speaker, we should understand it that way. People are talking about the import of these regulations. Yes, emphasis is on import substitution, and that certainly would impact positively on the economy. How to best deal with it should be the concern of all of us. And I would want to, as I said, end by pleading with the minister to go and factor the amendments proposed in the regulations and submit same to us on Monday. The matter that has been raised about the Speaker having taken a position, I'm not aware of that, so I do not want to address that. But, Mr. Speaker, the important thing is to allow all of us to be on the same page. So, as I'm saying, just to reiterate the point, that the minister should factor the amendments and resubmit same on Monday. That will come, as I said, with some challenges. Getting the number of days to have it mature before we adjourn on the 22nd of December. But let's get there. I guess we can find a way around it.
Was it late at all?
It wasn't. And KT Hammond is furious because if you count per law, this regulation will only come into law if it's late today, and it will mature on the 22nd of December, 21 sitting days. 22nd of December is when Parliament goes on break. So if it was not late today, it means if it's late on Monday, Parliament would have to try and sit one Saturday or one Sunday to be able to make up. Every day it delays, it means they would have to find some days or prolong their Christmas break to be able to get this. And the minority leadership came back out there saying that they are not going to allow this to go through because they have serious concerns. They do not believe KT Hammond can be trusted with such powers, and that is why they are going to oppose this every step of the way.
And they address a news conference?
Yes.
The regulations and the minority leader will talk about. We believe that these regulations, going back to this very archaic, import license regime, that has been fraught with so many challenges, especially allowing the minister the power not only to approve a license, but wake up one morning and say that I have revoked your license. And then deciding at all times that when I revoke your license, you can't do anything. We know what the problems can be. And that is why we believe that this has to be strengthened. We are opposed to this regulation in its current form. But we are for ensuring that we have value. But we have to plan properly, make sure that as a country, we have the capacity to do that. We don't believe that we are at that point yet. And so this must be done well thought out properly. But it can't be done in a KT fashion, Hammond way when he comes and he believes that he can bully everybody in Parliament and tell the people of Parliament we don't have any say in the regulation. We do. And today we'll prove to him that we do.
Our concerns are quite a number. We strongly believe that this regulation is in bad taste. It is not in the interest of the ordinary Ghanaian. And unfortunately, if this regulation is allowed to pass in its current form, inflation will be skyrocketing. Prices of certain goods and services will go up. Because clearly, it looks clearly that it is not properly thought through. It looks like something that President Akufo-Addo and Honorable KT Hammond and Honorable Bawumia sat up in their office and just wrote it without proper policy. Let me say this. We are saying this for a simple reason that this regulation is giving so much powers, excessive powers, to one man, the minister responsible for trade and industry. In this case, Honorable KT Hammond. Before you import them, you have to go and see him in chambers. And two, you will need to apply for import permit. Import permit. And when the permit is granted, a committee that will be established. When the committee grants that permit, going forward, it is only the minister who can renew the permit. And the same minister can cancel that permit. We think they are giving too much powers to the minister responsible for trade and industry.
Thankfully, we can bring in Carlos Ahinkra, he's the chairman of the Trade Industry Tourism Committee. Also joining us is the Emmanuel Amakofi-Bois, is a deputy minority leader. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time here on Top Story. Carlos, let me start with you. I mean, so I just heard the majority leader propose some amendments. Have you seen these amendments, and what are they?
Well, thank you very much, Ivan. Before I even answer, let me ask, how did we get to this point? I'm really surprised as to how this has degenerated into something, personally against the Minister of Trade, as if there's a law for the Trade Minister, Katie Hammond, and a law for Ghana. Please. What is happening here is a very simple thing. But we always cry of our exchange rate skyrocketing, dollar not being stable, dollar going too high. I don't know if you understand this dynamic, but even if anybody comes to this country to invest, by virtue of investing in this country and having to, as it were, enjoy the incentives of an investment portfolios of this country, the person has 100% retention of profit and they can take it out at any time. So once they invest in this country, the government is enjoying, whether you can find it or not, to find forex for this company to take out. And it's becoming increasingly difficult for us. Not too long ago, I heard the Gupta president even lamenting, repeating the same thing I'm telling you, that how does government sit and see a lot of foreigners coming in and importing goods for sale, and we crying about forex. So, in government looking for ways and means to control forex outrun or forex diminishing in our system, we decided, or government decided, that let me try and impose some kind of quota system on some of these items that come into the country. Many countries have done it in different ways. For example, Nigeria, we woke up one morning and only had an announcement that countrymen or businessmen in this country, it is for your information that this one products, if you decide to bring it into Nigeria, we don't have a problem. But please be informed that you will not have forex exported or forex repatriated to pay for this shipment if you bring them into Nigeria. In a way, they are not saying they are banning the importation of those products, but they are telling you that for those 41 products, if you bring them into the country, you will not get forex to pay for them. That's a very crafty way of solving their forex.
And from what I've heard, you've made these arguments already on the floor. The minority is still opposed to it. The question then becomes, how do you make progress? The majority leader says he has some recommendations on how to build consensus. I'm curious to know what these amendments are, because that is key, is it not, to trying to break this whole conflict.
I don't even know
this.
how we got to this point, because we have already had meetings. This morning,
Was
I
there
had
consensus?
a meeting with my leader, and we came to some kind of arrangement as to what we think is the problem with the minority. This afternoon, myself, Amabua, Akoforsen, Ricky Hagan, and my leader, Chairman Sabonsu, together with the minister, we stood again behind the doors of Parliament and went through this thing, and they indicated where they thought we should have their input. The first one was to ensure that at least the appellate or the appealing, the appellate body, there must be an appellate body who will counter or who will oversee, review the minister's powers. We said, yes, that is okay.
You agree to that?
Yeah, we agree to that. But where does it go to? Let it come to Parliament. If the committee sits and give a permission or a permit to anybody to import, and like you said, the minister decides to cancel at the point, or the person is refused that certificate of importation, they have a right to appeal to Parliament. Parliament or the Speaker will refer to an appropriate committee. The committee will sit on it and bring it back to the floor plenary for discussion or for debate. So we agreed to this. In fact, we even had between me and myself and my leader, Chairman Saboso, that it would be important for us to include Buta in the committee. So at least they would also have, the other side, the demand side, will have a representative on the committee, which the minority also agreed. So we are finished with all this. And I remember that the leader, the minority leader, mentioned that Haiti should go and input all these in the law and bring it back. If we didn't do that, then that is a problem that I understand, should happen. But if he did, then I don't know where we are coming from.
Okay, stay with me. Let me bring in Amakofi. Mr. Boa, do you have an agreement based on the closed-door meetings that I'm just hearing from Carlos Ahinkra?
You are talking about somebody who is
Mr. Hinkra,
just
a
second. A lawyer.
Mr. Hinkra, just a second.
You can't just castrate his character like that.
Mr. Hinkra, just a second. Let me hear from Amakofi Boy. Yes, Mr. Boy.
Let me say good evening to your listeners. Listen, I'm sure we will not be talking about these matters if we are all sure that all these 23 products that we are discussing these regulations, we have the capacity to meet these requirements. And don't let the people of Ghana understand that we all want us as a country to have the ability to add value to all these products we have so that we can have the capacity here without really bringing them into the country. But we all know that, for example, after throwing so much billions of dollars, I was able to show that we spent over 6 billion Ghana cedis on the 1D1F in tax exemption, in stimulus packages. Even with all of that, we're planting for food. A report by the Crops Association says that, for example, we can only meet 47% of rice locally. So the rest we have to import. And it is also very clear that demand cannot be met locally in the next 3 years. So clearly, we have a challenge. We also know that, yes, these imports create some balance of payment challenges for us as a country. The problem we have has to do with the regulations and how it's worded and the power that it is going to give to the minister, not Katie Hammer as a person, but to the minister. And the rent-seeking risk we face, especially thinking about the history of import permits and what it has done to this country before. And I'll read you one example. Look, let me show you. Look at the requirement for cancellation. It says that the minister, if he is so sure and he can justify that you do not have to get a permit, can cancel it. I mean, in a lot of the provisions there, the power of the minister there is a problematic. And so what we are trying to do here is very clear. Let me also make it clear that in the regulation, we don't have the power. We need 2/3, for example, once it's late, to be able to overturn it. We don't have that 2/3.
But in the meeting, in the closed-door meeting, Mr. Hinkra talks about, this came up, and he says both of you agree that appellate body.
There are a lot of issues that has not been addressed. One, for example, there were stakeholders report that needed to be done. One of the things that we try to get some consensus on, or for example, try to make sure we can neutralize the power of the military and make sure that people who will be whose licenses will be revoked arbitrarily will have some redress, and that Parliament itself will have a say in.
But Mr. Hinkra says they agree. Mr. Hinkra says they agree to that, so that has been settled.
I'm not finished. I'm saying that those proposals have been made. If you listen to even the majority leader today, what he says that once we had thought through some proposals, those wording has to be made and then reflected in the document. That has not been done.
If that is done, will you back it? If that is done, will you back it?
They need to bring it. We need to look at it. But the bottom line is that the regulation as it is not acceptable, because we think it is going to really create rent-seeking risk that we do not want to go by. We know
even with the checks and balances,
we've gone past this type of
even with the checks and balances you have proposed.
We will not support it, please.
So nothing will change your mind, even if they make amendments.
Any rent-seeking, archaic import permit that will create corruption, we won't support it.
So what you want is a complete withdrawal of this?
That is what we want.
Mr. Hinkra, that's what they want.
That's very unfortunate. You see, I don't see why he keeps shifting the goalpost. And for me, if you have sat down with us this afternoon, we all agreed to the way forward, including the minority leader. And has come out that Katie or the minister should go and do some changes and come up with a new document which will incorporate all this that we discussed. I don't see why he's changing the goalposts. In the meantime,
I showed you.
He shouldn't think that people or the government will just bring any document in without doing anything.
No. I just showed you.
If you just listen to me, you are saying that we don't have capacity to produce and we are going to have a shortfall. Meanwhile, we are banning the product. You think that we won't do any analysis before we come out with this? For example, he made reference to rice. If you have a minute, the total import of rice for 2021 was about 609,000 metric tons. Total production of current production of paddy rice in Ghana today is 1.2 million metric tons. The capacity, milling capacity today in Ghana is 630,000 metric tons. And the consumption rate in Ghana for rice in 2020 was 1,450 metric tons. So it means that we require an additional production of paddy rice of 819,000 metric tons to be able to set up and meet this. And this is very easy for us to do because already the product is there. We only need the milling to increase. So if you are telling me that if you think that we didn't do any analysis before coming to this kind of arrangement, you are mistaken.
Go and to regulation number 17.
Again, if I may
look at the power
this law is going to improve.
We are saying that
and it's going to ensure that we regulate the extent to which our forest is drained from our reserves. We don't have too much for it. You know what? Even look at
it's very clear, Amakofi Boy and Carlos Ahinkra, that this particular matter will require far more than an amendment, and we will watch how this plays out in Parliament, considering what we heard from the majority leader, that the minister should return with the amendments. As you've heard already from the deputy minority leader, this is not something they will support, regardless of any amendment that will be made. But I'm grateful, gentlemen, for your time. I know this is a matter that divides opinion in the House. It's only in Parliament that this can be resolved. And so at least we have some clarity, and quickly say with me, that one of the proposals is to put an appellate body above the minister, and this will return to Parliament for a final decision if indeed you are aggrieved at the decision taken by the minister. But you've just heard from Emmanuel Amakofi-Boa say, well, even if you bring that, we simply do not support this. And so where do they go from here? I mean, the majority side, Parliament will decide this next week. This is Top Story. Ghana Connect in a minute.